Beware of the comfort of conformity. Conformity is a part of life whether we like it or not. It's the glue that keeps society together. In one way or another, we are all conforming to fit in, or at least appease the people in our personal life, work, or daily interactions. We're taught from a very young age to fit in. People find comfort and camaraderie with those that they perceive to be part of their group. Look around, it's plain to see. Every group, regardless of how fringe or nonconformist they appear to be or would like you to believe that they are, they all have their own rules, norms, and expectations for their members. When you hear others pointing out another group and referring to them as conformists, understand that they too are conforming to the rules of their group. It's human nature to point out things about others that we're unwilling to face about ourselves, or see things in others that we can't see in ourselves. But at some level, conformity is healthy, but don't let a group define who you are, and don't try to fit in just to belong. Don't sacrifice who you are just to be a part of some other group. Many people, both old and young, get into trouble and wind up with regrets when they ignore their true self in the pursuit of social acceptance. Yes, it feels good to be part of a group, to have some sort of affiliation or identity. Humans are social creatures, and we have a natural inclination to seek the approval of others. I grew up in a hyper-competitive environment where there was a very unhealthy preoccupation with fitting in and being accepted. The peer pressure was stifling. Everything from wearing the right clothes and shoes to joining the correct team or clubs. Having the right friends. And it didn't end there. Everything was on the table, including the success and social standing of your parents. What street did you live on? What does your father do for a living? What kind of car does your parents drive? Any way that people could try to position themselves as higher in the pecking order, they were going to leverage it. And it was absolutely oppressive. Everyone was competing. Parents, kids. We even had teachers that would complain that the kids are driving nicer cars to school than they were. There was the handful of so-called leaders and trendsetters, and then there was an army of followers. I've seen people spend their entire lives trying to fit in and win the acceptance of others. I've seen people who burn out on all this nonsense and they just go their own way and do their own thing. There is no right answer. You have to find out what's right for you. Within all groups, there are expectations, norms, and ultimately control over its members. Most people find comfort knowing what's expected of them and following. They like to follow a paint-by-numbers life. This leads to what's known as a conformity bias, where people simply follow the herd rather than use their own critical thinking and good judgment. We've all seen and heard the pleas of children who want something just because the other kids have it, or they want to do something because they feel like everyone else is doing it. This doesn't stop in childhood. In the adult world, we call this keeping up with the Joneses. There's another downside to conformity. Adapting yourself to fit in with other people's expectations will bring you rewards and validation, but on the flip side, a failure to conform to the group will be met with criticism, punishment, or even exclusion and exile. The peer pressure can cause a loss of self. From constantly denying who you are and overriding the person that you really are. One of my favorite movies was the 1978 classic Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which is actually a social commentary about the fear people had to the corporatization of America, and they felt it would lead to a loss of personal identity. Everybody would be the same. I used to work in corporate America, and I really felt like I was in the movie. Everyone looked the same with their suits and briefcases. We even seemed to have the same haircuts. You were there to do a job, and expressing your individuality or sharing your opinions was a surefire recipe to be fired. I sat there and I thought about it, reflecting on my college years in the Big Ten, where I saw all sorts of different students. People expressing themselves and representing their different groups. Jocks, preppies, frat boys, nerds, hippies, you name it, we had them. There were countless majors available that people could study. It was an environment where people were allowed to express their individuality and figure out who they were as a person. And that self-expression was evident just walking around campus. Then, as if overnight, it seemed that we all graduated and then we got pushed through this machine where we all popped out on the other side like a bunch of corporate clones. Many of us found ourselves working at jobs that had nothing to do with our majors and were about as spiritually fulfilling as watching paint dry. People just trading their time in for a paycheck. Most people go along with the program, they play it safe, they stay in their lane, they stay in their comfort zone. It's just who they are. They've been doing this in childhood and they're going to do it through their adult life. And many of them are going to be rewarded for doing so. But it does come at a cost. At some point, they will lose sight of who they really were. Their dreams and their desires will be long forgotten. And they will become a blind follower, a lemming following the herd right over the cliff. One day they may wake up to an existential crisis where they wonder what happened and who they become. They may look in the mirror and not even recognize this person looking back at them. This is where the notion of a midlife crisis comes from. I will say, for the purpose of full disclosure, that it's easier to conform and gain acceptance and membership to a group than it is to stand alone on your own 2 feet, to be the person that you feel that you are, to reject the peer pressure, to take risks and take the road less traveled. It takes a lot of work to try to conform and fit in. So why not spend some of that energy figuring out who you are and who you would like to become? My advice: be yourself. Figure out who you are. Be comfortable in expressing who you are. Follow your dreams. And yes, we will change who we are over time to some degree or another. Our dreams and ideas will change. What we value will change. People will come in and out of our lives. We may feel a bit lost or alone on this journey of self-actualization, but understand that we all fit in somewhere. Let me say that again. We all fit in somewhere. So have faith in your true self. The path to happiness comes from being comfortable with who you are. It may be painful at times, but ultimately the rewards will be there for you. Think about it another way. If you present a false self in order to gain social acceptance, the people around you don't really like you for you. In truth, they don't even really know who you are. They like this false self that's being presented. And why am I telling you all this? Well, I was raised to play it safe, and that model didn't seem to fit me very well. I wanted to go off and do my own thing, be my own person, and I was willing to accept the responsibility of that journey. I was once told by a very accomplished businessman that there's nothing worse than waking up at age 35 or 40 and wondering, what if? There's many great movies about that very subject, like Family Man with Nicolas Cage or Mr. Destiny with Jim Belushi, both excellent movies with a great message for life. There's nothing worse than being unhappy with your life and feeling like it's too late to change. Looking back and wondering, what if? What if I'd taken that chance? What if I'd bet on myself or gone against popular conventions and threw caution to the wind? In the end, people don't regret the bad decisions and mistakes they made. They regret the opportunities that passed them by. They regret the things they wish they had done. They regret the time that they lost spinning their wheels in the mud or wasting their time on nonsense. As you get older, you're going to see many people who are not living the life that they want, or maybe the path that they took just wasn't lined with the roses that they once thought. Their life has become a disappointment. Maybe they played it safe. They went with the flow. They conformed. They listened to other people rather than their heart. One day they woke up and said, what happened? They're neck deep in a life that's not of their own design, and there's no way to correct course. They slip into a fantasy land or fall into despair. I'm old enough to have seen these cautionary tales play out. I've seen the guy who can't stop reminding everyone about how much his life sucks. and he's either too impotent or afraid to make a change. The guy who thinks that they did everything right and they played by the rules and they wound up losing everything in the crash of 2001 or 2008. Maybe they got a divorce. Maybe some tragedy happened. But there was no pot of gold at the end of that rainbow. We've all been at the bar and had that drunk telling everyone unfortunate enough to be within earshot how they could have been a professional athlete if it wasn't for some feeble, half-baked excuse. I've seen people regress back to a better time in their life and they wind up like Al Bundy from Married with Children, walking around in their mid-40s wearing their high school Letterman jacket, talking about the 4 touchdowns they had in one game at Polk High. Sure, people laugh when I tell stories like this, but in truth, it's very sad. Don't be that guy. You only have one life to live, so make it count. Take the time to figure yourself out and chart a course for your future. Put yourself first. Initially, you might not get a lot of support. You might even get some backlash. But if you stay the course, the people in your life who really matter, they're going to be there for you. They are going to continue to support you. And while there's no guarantees of success, at the very least, you're not going to wake up one day and say, I wonder what would have happened if I had been true to myself. I wonder what would have happened if I followed my dreams. The best conformity is to become the person that you really are and the person who you would like to be. So again, if you like the content, please like and subscribe. If you have experience with this, again, please add something to the comments section so we can all learn from that. And until next Wednesday, thank you for joining me.